Hi, my name's Melody, and I'm your local semi-say-so succubus. In this video, I'm going to be showing y'all how I edit my VTuber highlights compilations. This video is heavily inspired by Night Paradox's tutorial on making VTuber highlights as well. I'll be linking their video as well as all of the plugins I use in this video in the description. I'm not going to go super in-depth with things. This is generally a very basic understanding of what different types of editing ideas that you can use in your highlights videos, as well as just generally showing my process for making these kinds of videos. I hope y'all enjoy. And this is typically how things will show up. Basically, it shows the thumbnails for all this stuff, as well as if you double click Untitled Project, it'll create a brand new project. However, what we are going to be working on is the Oblivion streams. Alright, so in regards to video editing, though, the program that I use is Davinci Resolve. It's free. As far as their advertising goes, it says that they have created stuff like Detective Pikachu and all of that in Davinci Resolve. I'm not 100% sure, but that is what their advertising seems to say. But it is a completely free program. It's the best one that I have used in the at least 4 or 5 years of video editing that I have had experience with, so I do recommend it. The one that I had the most experience with was HitFilm Express. I've only switched over to Davinci Resolve recently, and I consider it to be much better to get into because there's a lot more tools and there's less stuff locked behind into paywalls. Plus, you can add plugins, which is really nice. The first thing that I would recommend if you are trying to edit a VOD and you don't have like a super intense beefy computer, and what you want to do is, if you have a longer stream, these two are not super long in length since I'm still kind of getting used to streaming again. These ones are only 2 to 3 hours, which I generally would recommend for the sake of your own sanity to try and keep your streams to that length, because my relics of the past streams are 9 hours, and I do not want to edit that, both because of the circumstances surrounding that, and also that is a load of work. But what I recommend, and regardless of the size of the stream, right click on the video and click Generate Optimized Media. So this is how you would do it. Right click on the video, click Generate Optimized Media, and it will start creating a more optimized version of this. And one of the next things that you would want to do for this whole thing, for editing, unfortunately, this is the most boring part of the entire fucking situation. I recommend switching over to the Edit tab rather than the Cut tab, because even though the Cut tab has a convenient little button up here, to just be able to cut wherever you are, I do not recommend that, because then you still have to go over here, click that, scroll to wherever you were, and etc, etc. What I recommend instead is going to the Edit tab and clicking on the Blade tool, because then you can just mouse over wherever you want it to be. You can also set up hotkeys to make it faster. I just prefer using the Blade tool, and you can also switch between A and B to switch between the cursor and the Blade tool. The reason I say this is the most boring part of the whole thing is because you basically have to rewatch your entire stream, specifically so that you can cut out any sections of your stream that you feel like are interesting enough for a video. At the very least, if you are doing something like I'm doing, which is like a stream highlights video. But in regards to that whole thing, it's not as painful of a process as it sounds, considering Davinci Resolve has an option to fast forward. And this is why I recommended generating optimized media, because if you go super fast, it can be very difficult for the program to keep up. Also, if you're video editing, I highly recommend a minimum of 16 gigs of RAM, because otherwise your computer will fucking die. That is exactly how I killed my last computer, because I was rendering videos at lossless resolution that were a half hour long, and it completely melted my motherboard because I didn't know how the computers worked. But regardless, the way that you actually fast forward is in order to play your video, you press the L key. To stop, you press K. To go in reverse, press J. And for either J or L, which are the reverse and play, if you tap them multiple times, the faster that it goes, which is also helpful in case there is like a BRB screen, or in this instance, if there was a ton of technical difficulties. I don't know if you notice, but right around here, there is a little blue mark on the timeline. And the reason that is there is because it is a custom mark I had put on the timeline to indicate where I actually started playing the game and got everything up and running. That way I could cut out all of the other stuff, which the way you can actually do that whole thing is if you're wanting to ripple delete an entire section of the video, and you don't have to worry about super complicated edits you made later in the video, you can just press the delete key on your keyboard and it will completely erase everything that you highlighted and move everything to the closest thing on the timeline. However, if you're wanting to do that same sort of thing while there is a bunch of complicated edits, you do the same section of just highlighting the clips you want to get rid of. I believe it's Control-Shift-X, which will get rid of all of that stuff without deleting unnecessary things that you're not trying to do. Also, on this editing tab, what I recommend doing is keeping multiple different timelines for the sake of your editing process, which if you click right here, this will open a drop-down thing, and if you click here, it will show your timeline as sort of a tab, and you can right click and rename it Oblivion Splits, because this is the timeline where I'm specifically going to be splitting the clip into multiple parts that are more digestible. And then if you want a specific timeline for the finished product, you can do the same thing. And I don't think I can rename it at the moment though, just because I don't have an actual clip here yet. Unfortunately, you can't really go above double speed, but still, watching an hour-long stream versus a 2-hour-long stream in its entirety is a lot more manageable. But the reason I say that is because if you go to 2x4, you can't fucking understand anything that is being said. A lot of the time, if there's just a ton of dead air, I also would recommend cutting that out, just for the sake of the pace of the video, depending on what your editing style is, at least. Okay, this is also something that is very helpful. If you highlight this and zoom out, you can actually scoot that down. If you simply use your mouse on the end of a clip, you can simply drag it out to bring back stuff that you have cut out. Yep, that's decent. Delete. See, that brought the clips closer together. However, you see there is this middle section. You can actually select the middle section itself and hit delete on that as well. Oh, also, these buttons up here, I completely forgot to talk about them. Both of these things that look like a fast forward symbol with a line at the end, both of those will jump to whatever cut you have currently made or the end of a clip, such as if you added subtitles or a random picture to show up on screen or something like that, then that will actually jump to the end of that and get you closer to where you're wanting to go. You can go to individual smaller and smaller and smaller moments depending on what you're wanting. Because if you're wanting to go to the end of the video, you would just want to highlight up here on the timeline itself and go all the way down here. But if you are wanting to just simply go to another section of the video itself, and so that you can trim it down or cut a little bit, you would just hit that same thing. And however, there are times where you want to go even smaller than that. If you're wanting to go frame by frame, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard.
Legitimately don't know.
Hey, that was me pressing and holding, but you can use those to go frame by frame for if you're wanting to do keyframes or if you're wanting to just get to a specific point on the clip visually. I completely forgot to mention, if you do the up and down arrow keys, it jumps to the next cut that you have. So you don't necessarily have to go up here and click on these in order to do the same thing. You can simply use the up and down arrow keys, and if you're wanting to go super quickly, you can press and hold and it will go through all of it super fucking fast. And of course, you don't necessarily have to do one at a time for these things. You can cut out each individual's section, highlight them all, and then press delete, and it will ripple delete all of them to make something like this.
Center. Let me have my mouse back. I'm trying to recenter the game window. Oh wait, hang on. Fucking right, volume mixer. I forgot.
As you can probably tell, what you want to do for each section is put a cut at the beginning and the end of whatever you're wanting to cut out of the video. And also, if you accidentally highlight a bit that you're not wanting to use, you can simply press and hold Control and click on that again. The part adds nothing to it. However, when it comes to the individual smaller cuts like that to make it flow a bit better, I would recommend waiting on that one until you actually are in your second timeline, simply for the sake of not overwhelming yourself. But ADHD brain go burr. And so this is how my process is a lot of the time. But I'm going to try and hold back if I'm able to.
Wait,
So now I need to go and do the fun part. And also, and for future reference, you don't necessarily have to include everything that you've cut. These are mainly just a general idea of what you think would be funny in the video or entertaining in some kind of way. It doesn't necessarily have to all be included. And so if you are in the editing process for the final version of it and you realize there is a bit that you had included that is kind of jarring or is just not that entertaining or funny, then you can always cut it out later. It doesn't necessarily have to be included. Like I said, this is the most boring part of the editing process, is just cutting out the parts that are boring and having to basically watch the entire stream all over again. Oh yeah, also, like most programs, Control S to save. Oh yeah, also, when it comes to splitting and everything, and with the blade tool, if you end up using the blade tool, you'll notice that often, and if you are around the area where the cursor is, it will automatically lock to where the cursor is. However, if you are wanting to be more precise, you can turn off this magnet here in order to do that sort of thing. There are various scenarios that is useful, but I can't think of what they would be at the moment. Let me go ahead and go through this and see if I can refine the trims a little bit further, because the video right now is about 17 minutes, which probably should be about a 10 to 13 minute video once everything's all finished. And I want to go in a little bit more in depth for Zoom related things.
Yeah.
This is something that I want to edit a bit. It's not necessarily a bad clip. However, with the full context, I feel like a zoom would make this part of the video more interesting. So I'm going to do that. So for that section, and part of the reason I'm wanting to adjust it is there is a decent amount of dead air. Now, not every video needs to be super fucking back-to-back snappy, constantly talking the entire video. However, that is how I like my videos to be. And if you're wanting to do the same, you can simply just use the blade tool to cut out the parts that are not super interesting. And that is something that's super helpful. If you're wanting the video to zoom in, and what you can do for that sort of thing, there are two options. Obviously, there's the one I mentioned before, which would be simply doing the keyframes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, if you're wanting it to be a slower zoom or a faster zoom, you can reduce the amount of frames or increase the amount of frames that you set the keyframe at. But I tend to do it by 5 because it feels the best to me. And you can zoom in that way. You can click over here in order to be able to manually drag it. And because you have the position set, if you're wanting to copy it to another thing, you can simply double click, Control C, click over to the next one, Control V, and for all of these different attributes in order to make it so that the next clip is at exactly the same position.
Yeah, this is definitely the pre-Skyrim game.
However, if you're wanting it to be a little bit more of a smooth one, and what I have is a plug-in, in which there are tutorials on how to actually get plugins. This is not at all necessary, but it is something that I like to use. And the one I have is Magic Zoom. which is a completely free plugin, and it's super helpful. And what I tend to do is go to about the place where it is at its peak of being zoomed, switch it to zoom and hold, move the position a little bit more, and change the scale of the zoom, and just make sure that what you're wanting to zoom in on is in frame by adjusting various things in the inspector panel until it is where you're wanting it to be. So
this is definitely the pre-Skyrim game.
And even if this is not the same exact thing as this one, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because visual variance between different cuts in a YouTube video is definitely helpful. When it comes to this zoom thing, it will actually look smooth. It's just kind of janky right now because my computer is not very good. I would also like to caution you on using that kind of plugin. It can be a bit much for your computer, but it is still a pretty fucking smooth transition. Also, if you ever feel like the keyframes are messing up the visuals or anything like that, you can go up here and hit this button at the top to completely reset it. I believe I went into this briefly before. However, I would also like to show y'all something here. There was a moment on stream where I completely f***ed up. The lockpicking minigame is super f***ing easy in Oblivion, and I don't know why I f***ed it up nearly as bad as I did, but it did lead to a decently funny clip.
I am smooth brain.
And as you can see, that is something that could be a funny bit. However, the brain here is kind of just sitting in place, completely not connected to my face. So what I'm going to do is at the beginning of this, I have set keyframes up. So we are just going to, as my head moves, we are going to move the brain along with it to try and make it match up with the head movements. And even though this is a little bit tedious, it does end up working out pretty fucking well in the end. And you can go frame by frame like I'm doing, however, it is not entirely necessary. And now if I
am smooth brain.
There we go. And you're also able to do that exact same kind of effect if you have a bit of text that you would like to have applied to specific NPCs or other players in a multiplayer game. If they are saying something and you would like what they're saying to be the focus of the joke, you can have the text track them in the exact same kind of manner that I did when it came to this. Okay, so I think what I am going to do for that is, instead of having it like that, I'm going to delete the audio for that. And I'm going to have that there, delete the empty space here. What I'm going to do is take this video clip here, and I am going to turn it into a custom thing. Okay, let me just slice that. Control X.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, I can't not name them that.
Okay, so this is the color tab, and this is what I'm going to do for this. And what you're going to want to do is click on this area and square. And for this kind of bit, you would just put a box here around the area in question that you're wanting to focus on. Right click here, add alpha output. See, there's this little blue dot here. Click on this box and drag all the way there. And now with this, what I'm going to do now is just move this to a more centered point, and then drag this to have it fade in and fade out. So now
Being made Oh my god. Yeah, no, I can't not name them that.
However, because of the fact that it doesn't start when I want it to, it starts after I've already typed the word crusty, I'm going to drag it out a bit further. And then right-click, change clip speed, and change it to about, I think, 200% to make it double speed. Might need to be a little bit faster, actually. That should be about right. Then just Control X, fade that out, and there we go.
Yeah, no, I can't not name them that.
Okay, and I'm going to also do the same sort of thing for this, which if y'all were wondering how I actually got the chat zooms, this is how. Okay, and I believe this tool right here should allow me to in the actual thing without changing the length of it. I can just click and drag along this in order to be able to have it at the correct length that I want. Split here, and then cut that, Control X on that, and then just change clip speed on this, click freeze frame in order to get it to stay there, because it only shows up for 0.5 seconds. And then do the exact same kind of thing. However, instead of any of these shapes, you would click on this pen icon in order to be able to click and put different points to go around this. You basically just want to create an outline with this pen tool to go completely around the chat box. And after it is finished, you can readjust them and by clicking and holding. And you do the same thing of add alpha output, drag here, and you can change the softness of it to do that sort of thing. And actually, I want to turn the softness off, but mess with this inside key down here in order to get it to be a little bit better. However, the size of this is a bit big to the point that it's very obvious that it's very low resolution, so I'm going to shrink it down a bit. And this is something as well that should be very helpful. If y'all haven't noticed before, whenever I have a chat box like this, it tends to bounce into the scene. So what I do for that is I use the selector, click on the clip in question, then I click on the keyframe icons up here for both zoom and position. Then I start it out super shrunken down, but in the correct position that I want it to be. Then use my arrow keys to go forward 4 frames, drag it up and into position and bigger than I want it to be. Then go forward 2 more frames and put it down to the size and position that I want it to be at. Right, and now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And move it down and onto my face.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, I can't not name them that.
There we go. Perfect. And actually, for this small section, and I'm going to put a marker here to remember this is where I want to put a subtitle, which is this. And this is something that I see a lot of people not getting correct, because what they tend to do for the subtitles, like Vshoujo has, and other bigger VTubers, where they have little subtitles and everything, a lot of the newer VTubers who are trying to do their own editing for videos, tends to be something that gets overlooked pretty easily, is they end up using subtitles throughout the entire video, which the point of the subtitles for these is not to be closed captioning, because that is something that can be achieved with either the Twitch plugin or through the automatic subtitle feature on YouTube that you can manually edit to more accurately represent what it is that you are saying. However, if you are wanting to add VTuber subtitles, you want to specifically put those subtitles at moments where you feel like that would, in particular, make the joke land better, where your words are visually on screen. Which, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just going to try to do that really quick. Which you'll want to do that by coming down here and clicking and dragging the text plus item onto the scene, and then just dragging it down to about the length that you want it to be, and then just entering what you want it to be, which, and what I'm wanting it to be is what I said here.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Which I think this one, and I believe, would require something that would be more individual words. I've already typed in the text itself, and what I want to do, instead of having it be the regular Open Sans font, is to find a font that is not going to get you into any copyright troubles, which for me, I use Fredoka Semi-Bold, and change it to that. Another thing you can do for the outlines themselves is click on the shading tab, click the number 2. It'll take you to the red outline thing, click enable. Scroll down, change the color from red to, typically what I recommend is having a color that represents you, and then for the thickness of it, go up here and drag it all the way to the right, or to whatever fitness doesn't look overwhelming or weird. And you can do the exact same kind of thing if you go to the settings tab up here in the inspector tool, click on the keyframe icon for the zoom, and it started off at 0%, 1, 2, 3, 4. Zoom, not super big, but decently big, 1, 2, and then shrink it down to normal size. And now you have your template for the text that you can just press and hold the Alt key, click, drag, and you've got the exact same one again that all you need to do is just edit the text. And what I recommend as well, since you didn't set a keyframe on the position section, you can change the position for it at any point. And if the text you feel is too small, you can also change the size option here to whatever size it is that you want. I'm going to leave it as default because I think it's pretty okay as is. I still need to mess with the actual timing of the subtitles themselves, which you can make it so that it matches up more with the sound coming out of your mouth. But for the most part, it's pretty much done.
Yeah, no, I can't not name them that.
Which when you're working with this, I would recommend clicking off the magnet tool. That way it won't fuck with anything. Then just readjust that. Bring this here. And that. And now, if I click the magnet back on.
Crusty Argonian maid. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I can't not name them that.
There we go. And that's something that you can do in order to get that set up. And generally, what you want to do is be able to add some funnier dynamic zooms in order to be able to have that sort of thing in a way that would be decently funny and entertaining, which I think I do a decent job at. This is still very rough. It's mostly for the sake of getting this done. I'm pretty perfectionist, so I'm not super happy with how that turned out, but I will go in and detail edit later. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little bit of a funny thing where it will zoom in as the fireball is going towards the rat, and then it will track the rat's body. I think that would be a good edit for this. And you can also add in those same kinds of subtitles to emphasize other moments, like I might add in and make it so that the epic combat music is a little bit more audible, and then add in the text
music stops, just to emphasize the joke a bit. Right, and then set keyframes again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then go down to my face, zoom out a little bit in order to be able to get my reaction to that happening on screen. Let's see how that turned out. And there we go. One thing that definitely helps with videos is to have a hook at the beginning. So what I ended up doing is, yeah, I took that section there and I have moved it to the beginning of the video here.
I'm just being chased around the...
And I mainly did this because it's an interesting scene that could potentially catch the attention of whoever is tuning into the video. This beginning section, I'm going to show y'all how to actually get this to look the way that it has for my Hobbit, and for both of my Hobbit videos and just other stuff. The main thing that I would like to point out, but in regards to like sort of a cool transition effect for doing that sort of thing. One thing that is very, very helpful in doing that sort of thing is some of the built-in tools that you have. And you can make something that looks pretty decently professional looking with all of the built-in tools without having mostly any assets. If you have an asset like a logo, for example, you can also include that and make it look even better, which this is something that I ended up doing. And it's not super complicated either, so I'm going to show you that. And there are a few different ways to do this. The main way that I did it, however... Okay, in the generators section, you would want to grab something called solid color. And this can be turned into whatever color you would like it to be. But see, you can set a custom color and do all of that sort of thing. I recommend bringing it down and decently short. Let me zoom in a bit more. And what you can do for this is, in order to have that sort of cool shape effect for that kind of video transition, I would recommend grabbing the things like either triangle left or right, or the push effect, which, to make it a little bit different, and I'm going to do the push. You can click on the transition effect itself there, and click here on this middle one to bring it out there. I would recommend clicking on in and out for easing. And what you can do with this is you can change the color of the outside of it to another color, such as white, which, oh my god, let go. And bring up the size of the border, so it has that sort of effect. It's a bit faster than I was wanting it, so let me just... You see, it does that sort of thing, and you can also click and hold on the effect you're wanting, press and hold Alt, drag, and it will bring it to the other side, and once it's on the other side, you can click that middle thing, and it will put it on the same area. And while it's over here, you can actually change this to a completely different color as well. And in regards to what I had done with the logo, you can do a similar thing. I would recommend bringing the logo to about the same length as the solid color. And if you end up deciding that you don't really like how that effect ends up looking for the shapes, you can actually change them later by just clicking here and clicking on transition type, and you can go down to whatever it is that you're wanting, which I think, because of my personal taste, I will change them to triangle left. And for these push effects, you can still have them apply for the logo, which that seems to work pretty well. And the exact same kind of effect can be applied that I did before. You can, of course, change the speed of it by making the solid color or the logo itself be different lengths, such as if you want a longer transition, which I'm not sure why you would, but if you wanted to, you could. And that is how I ended up making this one. You can also, while you are doing all of that, if you want your colors for this to be reflective of the logo you have on the screen, if you click on the color option, you can click pick screen color, and it lets you do sort of a color picker tool effect, such as if I wanted that side to be green and this side to be a white, you can do that same pick screen color for that, in order to make it have the more accurate colors. Normally what I do is I try to get certain in-game songs that are playing in the background to match up with the background music I want to have for the beginning of the video. However, since it's not super clear what the background music is, or I believe there's actually no background music whatsoever, I'm instead going to do the same sort of thing, but in reverse. I'm going to have the music that starts playing for the intro to the video be the stuff that plays after the hook, primarily because that music that is playing for the hook is legitimately just the fucking Oblivion theme. And now I should be able to get that song for the beginning of this. However, I want to make sure where the song actually picks up on so that I can have that there. I'm also going to be doing something, so it's at a bit where there's violins. While you are actually setting up the media section here, you can actually use the I and O keys on your keyboard in order to put an in and out point, so you don't have to trim down the audio itself while you are in here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think I lined that up right. I'm also going to be doing something that'll... Okay, yep, it's pretty fucking close, so I just need to make sure it's lined up there. I'm also going to be doing something... Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Now it matches up almost exactly. And all I really need to do now is simply delete the space. Nope, that didn't work. If that does not work, I can simply drag this stuff a bit closer and delete this empty space instead. That should hopefully help a bit. I'm also going to unlink the clips here, delete the audio there, and then just simply... Hang on, I should move this a bit so that it is ready to be used, but so that it is not in the way right now. Because I want it to start around here. Whoops. Perfect. And let's just bring that a little bit closer. And get it there. And then after that, let's put the transition itself above here. I'm also going to split that, get rid of that part. And the reason I'm wanting to do that is specifically so I can go to the color page, and on, I think it's this middle section here, if I'm not mistaken, I will go to this section here, click and drag this up in order to blur the whole frame. And I believe, yep, that should be, yep, that looks like it, that looks about right. And now I can also do a video transition of a blur dissolve here to make it a bit smoother once the music actually kicks in. However, because of the fact that it does like a weird sort of fade effect, I'm going to change it so the horizontal and vertical strength are exactly the same, so it's a less jarring transition. The way the music just cut out. May want to turn the strength down on that a little bit for both of them. So you can actually, if you click down on these things, you can actually do the left and right drag thing. So I'm going to blur it even more than it was. And I'm also going to, because of the fact that it's a bit close to the screen, I'm going to do that. The way the music just cut out. There we go. That should work. And next, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the actual title card sort of thing here. I've got the game logo. I've got the full version of my logo. And then wherever it was, yeah, I'm going to copy this text here and simply drag it all the way to the beginning of the video. Perfect. That way I can just simply use that same text for the titles card and just simply adjust a couple elements. Then probably make the size of the font a bit bigger. Then I can have it be, then make the logo a bit smaller and a bit higher up, and do the inverse for this. And actually, because of the fact that I'm going to be making this the title screen sort of thing, I'm going to simply drag all of these out to here, right under the transition, and it should cause them to all fade out at the start of this. That way, if I bring this down here, might want to do a different Oblivion logo because that is pretty fucking blurry. And I want to apply that same sort of pop-in effect to the other two. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, perfect. Yeah, that's a lot higher resolution, and I just need to adjust some stuff. Like I definitely need to crop out that part again. But I can probably add drop shadow. Although I should apply a drop shadow to the other two pieces as well if I'm going to be doing that. And I think right at the end, oh yeah, also you can click these to disable video tracks if they are currently blocking the way from something you need to see. I think what I'm going to do is bring it up a little bit further on each of these so that they, as the video goes on, are slowly zooming in throughout the rest of the bit, like this. And let's try it with the transition. I'm also going to be, there we go, perfect. All right. And one thing that is very helpful if you are unorganized, or if you simply want your clips to be more organized, you can highlight all the ones that you want for this specific thing, right click, and then clip color and change it to whatever you want.
Thank y'all so much for watching. I really hope that y'all found this video helpful and were able to get a few good ideas out of this. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like. And if anything was unclear, be sure to leave a comment and let me know what all you wanted to have clarified. Anyways, thank you all guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!